to lie, won't stop to lie, can't stop to lie, won't stop to lie, can't stop to lie, won't stop to lie, ain't no Chico.
Welcome to another episode of Tech Don't Sleep podcast. It's your boy Bill McCleskey in the building, and I'm sitting here with a special guest, Adrian Davis. Appreciate you joining us, man.
You already know.
Listen, we always have, a subject matter expert or a special guest in the hot seat, and really, they are here to add value to you as an entrepreneur or as a professional and help you grow your business, grow your career, and reach those objectives that you set for yourself. And, Adrian, I always tell people, man, when I speak or when we have an episode, I like people to have some practical takeaways, right? Some things that they can walk away with today and apply today to their life or their business. So, man, I know the discussion with you is going to be cool. We just did an episode with your podcast.
Yeah. It just did.
The Executive Suite.
Yep, Inside the Executive Suite.
And that was fun with you and Timothy Bond.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was cool. Y'all check that out, Inside the Executive Suite. That's on all social, not social media, but podcast platforms.
Yep, exactly.
And YouTube as well. So check that out. That was a good conversation, man. So appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man.
So listen, Adrian, man, you are the founder and CEO, I presume, of Momentum University, right?
That's correct.
So tell us about, now, man, first of all, momentum is one of my favorite words.
Yeah.
Okay. And so tell us about Momentum University and why you named it that.
Yeah, so what's amazing about it is we're so connected on so many levels about the birth and the evolution of Momentum University. You actually spoke at the very first Momentum
man.
conference,
I remember that
speaker series.
Definitely.
And so, it only makes sense that we kind of come full circle with this. But what happened is this was pre-COVID when everybody was still coming together. Momentum was this idea, man, that, an object at rest stays at rest until acted on from an outside source, right? And so what we wanted to be as a organization, an entity, is to act on people. Let them know, hey, man, you stagnant, right? You got to do some things. You got to get moving. You got to get moving, right? And so when we brought speakers like you and Kent, all these other speakers that have come, what it did is they shared their story and people resonated or vibrated with them and connected. And I'm like, man, this was awesome. If it can happen for him, it can happen for me. Well, what we were doing, we were seeing that each year, we were doing this just one time a year, people were changing their lives. People were jumping into new industries, starting new businesses, losing weight. They were doing all this kind of stuff. I'm like transformational.
You were doing a little coaching for folks who attended that as well, if they opted in for coaching.
Yeah, exactly. So, all this was happening.
Yeah.
And so I just got with my team and said, man, there has to be a way that we can be even more impactful. And what happened was COVID hit. And so we had I think it was Momentum 3 coming, and we had all the advertising, marketing ready to go. Yeah. And someone tapped me and was like, look, if all these big organizations and these big conferences that have been going on for years, like they're going virtual or they're stopping for this year, I think you need to do the same thing. Yeah. And so I was like, man, I got hope. I think we're gonna be able to make it. Like nobody's gonna be there. Right?
When was it scheduled in 2020? Like
it was
April,
like June. It was like June. So everything was still new. We didn't really know a whole lot. And so at that point, I said, all right. At that time, I was still doing some work with an organization, and they put some folks on furlough. Okay. And so I was one of those because if you're not in a learning and development entity or organization, even if you're a consultant or contractor, they're focused on trying. And companies were hemorrhaging, man. They
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so what happened is the very first thing that happened on the first day of my break or the furlough is I went to a 72-hour training with Bob Proctor.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Man. The late Bob Proctor.
The late Bob. He just passed, man. And online, though, I saw it was 2,600 people across the globe.
Wow.
And I'm sitting here thinking, wait, how are they doing this, right? And he was just keeping it moving. Yeah. And it kept the attention span for virtually 3 days. I went on Friday until Sunday.
Was it all day? Or
it was most of the day, man.
Wow.
It was most of the day, and they just had different things. And I was like, what's going on? And so at that point, I was like, you know what? I think we can take this virtual. So I went back to the team. I was like, hey guys, let's keep this going. Let's do it virtually. And sure enough, man, we did it. It was 3 countries, 7 states that were in attendance for Momentum.
So did y'all have to reschedule that in-person event to virtual, or did you keep the same date?
We kept the same date, just changed the platform.
Virtual.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I virtually turned my house, the living room, into a studio.
Yeah.
At the point before I built mine out, and I told all the speakers, I was like, here, people respond and resonate to your energy, and I'm a facilitator. I'm a trainer, speaker. I'm like, you usually don't get the same energy if you're just sitting behind the desk like this.
Yeah.
So I had a person who was doing exercise and physical fitness. I was like, hey man, you need to have your mat out, whatever it is,
let's
and
go.
have folks doing it.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened. So I had everybody standing up or in their space, just on camera. And then we went into just building like it was almost like videos, and so it held people. There was a person from Australia. Wow. And I said, you still on the line? She's like, look, I'm struggling a little bit, but I'm still on the line. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, man.
So you have people from, you said 3 countries, 7 states in the U.S.
Yeah.
And that the purpose of the Momentum Conference is what? To pour into people, personal development, professional development. What's the main purpose?
It's a little bit around career development, mostly personal development.
Okay.
And that, that goes all the way back to one of my core beliefs is that you got to work on yourself before you can start working on teams and your organization, right?
Definitely.
And I tell people, I don't ask you to do anything I haven't done, right? Or would do, right? And so when the first downturn I shouldn't say first downturn, but the first major downturn for me in my career in 2008, 9, all I had was real estate. I had a nonprofit organization that my mom had started. I was working in that, and then I had a for-profit company that I would just flip houses. I would renovate and flip houses. And my background is in architecture, so that's what I did. I found that space, and I was like, that's great. Problem is, I didn't have any plans, any strategy on like saving money, building, investing beyond that. So everything was around housing. So when housing fell along with the rest of the economy, everything. So I almost lost everything but my family.
Wow.
And I mean, when you start to sit there and have a conversation with your wife because you can't pay for her hair, you're just like, what? She looking at me.
That's serious.
That's serious, right? I'm like scrounging in the house to try to pay for cars and houses. And she's like, what we gonna do about this? I was like, for real? For real? But that meant something to her. And so I was just like, oh my gosh. What am I gonna do?
Yeah.
And at that point, that's when I first turned to personal development, because I've always been a hustler. I always had understood.
Now, what made you turn? Because that's interesting, man. You're doing well. You have a setback. The economy collapses, and then your mindset is turn to personal development. Whereas I don't think most people would go in that direction. Like, what? I didn't initially turn there either. What happened was, best friend Tim, we talked about. He asked me a question that I couldn't answer, and that was one thing. That's kind of a pet peeve of mine is that I don't like not being able to answer certain questions. So I got to find the resource so I can at least come back. But when it's about me, I was like, wow, I don't know. And the question was, what did he say? He said something to the fact of, what's your definite purpose? And I didn't know what that meant. Yeah.
And I was like, what is that? And he was like, I really think you should like ponder on that, man. And he was like, here's a book. Now, I tell people, and I actually put this on a post on LinkedIn not too long ago, I could read, like I said, I did nonprofit work, so working on grants and things like that, but I didn't like to read. And so there were no books.
You said I can read.
I can read. I just didn't like it. I didn't like it. I'm like, Bill, I would rather do anything else but read.
Okay.
And I love, we share the love for music. So I would blast music in my car. Who's the new artist? Like, that's all I was doing.
Yeah.
And so books just was distant to me, man. And so he said, hey, man, why don't you read this book?
Yeah.
And it was the Science of Getting Rich.
Okay.
By Wallace D. Wattles.
Yep.
And I hated the book. I hated the book.
You hated it.
I hated it because
did you read it?
I read it.
Okay.
But I hated it because I'm looking for an answer.
Okay.
And if you've read the book, and if you haven't read the book, you gotta go read that book. You can download it for free.
Yeah, The Science of Getting Rich. It is a free download.
Yeah, it's a free download. And so I listened over and over and over, and the more I read, the more I got frustrated because I didn't understand what he was saying. It was distant. It was foreign language to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that made me turn towards, okay, I have no idea about this. This is a different world for me. How do I master it?
Okay.
Right? That's the hustle coming out of me. But then I had to do it in a different way. And so from a distance, and it was a real distance because he was gone at the point, the next entity or person that I started following and connecting was Jim Rohn.
Okay.
Yep. So that was a sequence. It was Science of Getting Rich, and then.
So how did you start following Jim Rohn? And by the way, for those of you who don't know, Jim Rohn's like the father of personal development.
Exactly.
He was the guy who Tony Robbins worked for.
That's what I was just about to say.
When Tony Robbins was first getting started, they're doing a lot of construction around here. So you followed him online on YouTube or what?
Yeah, just YouTube, man. I mean, what happened was I looked to Tony Robbins.
Okay.
And I was listening to Tony Robbins, and then some kind of way, how you connect the AI from Tony Robbins to Jim Rohn, and I heard somewhere that this was Tony Robbins' mentor. I was like, I appreciate you, Tony. I appreciate you, Tony Robbins, but I'm gonna go to this guy. He has the wealth of knowledge, and I started following him and started seeing how he broke information down.
Yeah,
and my trajectory started to do like this.
Yeah,
and I started to become a different person.
Right.
And
now let me stop right there, man.
Yeah.
What you just said, you started to become a different person. It's so key, and I think I don't want to skim over that because a lot of people miss the fact that if they want to change their life or their trajectory, like you said, we a lot of times look at what we need to do outside of us, right? Do I need to, work harder? Do I need to get an introduction? Do I need to go get a loan or raise money or all these other outside resources? But the greatest resources are within us, and if we work on those, we actually become a different person. We start to attract, what we want.
Yeah, and it's funny that you use the word attract because after that, in the sequence, I started following the law of attraction. Okay. So now I got all of this stuff that feels very cerebral, very metaphysical, and that's a whole distant life for me, man. I mean, I'm working with my hand. Before that, it's like, hey, man, hustle, versus what is this stuff that's within me and in the atmosphere that I don't know about. And so I just started learning that, man. And I just really became a different person and started, setting goals for myself. Start saying, hey, if I put this in front of me, can I achieve this? If I put this in front of me, who do I need to connect with to help me? And it just started building a whole new environment for me, man. And, I just started stepping up. Yeah. And I ended up getting a job. And that's what it was a job, man. I was working. And I remember about 8 months in, she would probably be like the senior VP. I don't want to give the structure away of the organization, but she came to me. She was like, you're not really supposed to be here. You made for greater than that. I was like, yeah, I appreciate that. She's like, that being stated, your position is being phased out. Terminated. So I was like, oh, okay, I appreciate that. She's like, so your job is not to do any of the work that's here. Your job is to find you a job. And I was like, really? Yeah. She was like, yeah. She's like, I'm every day. I'm not gonna look at you strange. I want you looking for jobs because I want you to land on a place before this has to be taken out. And I mean, if you are a person of faith, that's kind of a favor type thing, or act of God.
She came to you and said, "You about to be let go. However, before I'm gonna let you look for something, so you can land on your feet."
Yeah. And so she asked me a question. She said, "What do you?" And you just stopped and said, "Here's a major point." I want to say this is a major point. She says, "What do you want to do?" And I think most people don't know, right? So for almost a year now, I'm embedded in all of this self-development, and I'm understanding I need to at least know where I'm going. And so that's exactly what I did. Is I was like, I want to go into learning and development. Wow. Now I don't have a learning and development.
Were you doing that there? So you were in a totally different role.
No, man. Okay. I was doing it was state government, and I was doing benefits things for state employees or for the constituents. And so, but while I was doing my work, I had my earpiece in and I was listening every day, all day. You talking about 8 hours just feeding yourself, right?
Yeah.
I'm binging all of this information. So when she said it, immediately I say, I want to do L&D. I want to do training and development. Don't have a background in none of that, but I can do it. And so I remember she said, go down to the HR person, see if she can get you connected. She wanted to put me in a place where she was like, you can join our team, but you got to take a 50% cut. I was like, who can do that? Just like today I'm making this money and today I'm making half. I mean, tomorrow I'm making half. What is that? And so, I mean, she was serious. Like,
so she was saying you could stay on.
You can stay on in this department.
Yeah,
but you got to, so for the position you were in, because you was in that particular office, which was kind of the executive office, if you come down here, you're going to take half a pay cut.
But you'll be able to do learning and development.
Yeah. And I was just like, I'm sorry, man. I don't know what you want, right? Like, could you do, I literally said it in our office, I was like, could you tomorrow take a 50% cut? And of course, when the table was turned, they don't really want to have a conversation. So all that said and done, I ended up landing with an organization that was in the state structure. You can move from department to department. And I was able to work with that. And I still took about, I don't know, maybe a 20-25% cut. But I tell people this all the time. When you know where you want to go, then, as long as the baseline is taken care of, like for home, family, and all that, then you'll be okay.
You'll figure everything else out.
And so that's exactly what I did. And so that's how I initially got into it. And so I started really doing admin work and started filling gaps. Okay. And that's where I started to create models and things. Because for me, I realized that if they're good here, but they don't have anything here, can we fill this? Yeah. And so I was working with this team, and they had consultants, and they were going out and doing it, but they had no way to see how they were adding value. And I'm thinking, well, how are you going to get this money again? Like, how are you going to be able to sell your perspective that this made sense for you to do that? And they had no way. And I said, well, why not create something? So totally not asked of me, totally not put on my job description. It was just something that I added. And they loved it. And then I was like, now, this is what I need to do. When you go, show the governor this. Show the governor this. And then what will happen is it'll help validate. Now, my pay wasn't attached to that. I wouldn't get no bonus for that. But at this point, listen to Jim Rohn, he was like, hey, you got to add more value. And you got to grow bigger than the position that you're in. Nice. Right? Woo. And so...
Hey. I'm telling you, hey, add value. Oh, man, I say that all the time. Whether you're working for somebody and then grow, bigger than the position that you're in. Yeah.
And that's what I did. So I just bust out those positions, man. Yeah. And then I got an opportunity to train one time. Like, I think a facilitator got sick or something. I was like, let's do it. And I got in there and did it, and people started loving it. Yeah. And then they started asking me to go around the state training. And then, things happened.
So how long before you started Momentum University or your company?
Yeah. Between that, yeah. So at this point, I had been coaching. I had been doing some coaching. Yeah. But it was more around small business coaching, like how to get started. Yeah. Looking at the income, loss. Performer, that kind of thing. Like, how's your business going to sustain? That type of thing. And what are you selling and how are you going to do it? That type of stuff. So it really wasn't catered towards a whole lot of L&D at that point. And so at that piece, between the time of me signing on to the time of me actually moving forward with that, Momentum in the name of it started, I think, in 2018. Yeah, I think it's 2018. That was like 2012.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're talking about 6 years. About 6 years. Now, I started moving in that place of really understanding who I was and how good I was. It's like there's some gifts that we have. Yeah. And then there's other things that you have with your gifts and you just have to polish it up.
Develop it. Yeah. And so but you knew you were going in that direction though.
I thought I knew
to start your own learning and development company.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean that's a key too, man. Because like for me, a lot of people know that I used to work for Comcast Business. And I knew I was leaving Comcast. Now my time frame was a little shorter. Okay, I was like a year, less than a year. But I learned what I needed to learn when I worked at Comcast. Yeah. And then I made connections. I built these relationships. And then when I started my company, my tech, I already had traction. I literally already had traction. I mean, I'm talking about day one, I was signing up customers, right?
Nice.
And so for you, I think that's really a big part of your success, having this 6-year ramp up period, so to speak, where you are developing your gifts, you're building these relationships, you're figuring out your model.
Yep.
And then when you go start your own company, it's not like you're starting from zero.
Yeah.
Like you got all this traction and momentum.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, initially the company was Crown Davis memberships, right? And so the concept of that is, if you got a gym membership, you don't just go in there and say, hey, can I use your treadmill?
Yeah.
And they be like, yeah, $30 a month for your treadmill. Like, you like, but I got all these other things in here I can do too, right?
Yeah.
So you got this membership, you got all of these things. And so when I was saying Crown Davis membership, it's like, hey, we got coaching, we got training, we got speaking, and then because like I said, the real estate side, so I had all these things under here, and so I really had to get laser focused on where I wanted to spend most of my time, and then start having other entities work with me.
But you still have Crown Davis, right?
Yeah.
That's the umbrella company.
The umbrella. At the point, it was just Crown Davis.
Okay,
so
I
then
got you.
momentum took off into 18 when we started that.
The
and
conference.
so when we started the conference. So making full circle around that the initial part of this conversation is that momentum, when it started to fly as a conference in 2020, when things got shut down, that's when it transitioned into, hey, this could be a product that organizations can use. Because once again, I'm in the organizations as a consultant. Right. I'm seeing how much they're paying out. They're sending me black cards. They put me on planes, and they're paying me for all of this. And I'm like, I appreciate it, but you spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
What if we could do this thing virtually, right? And so I said, this is the benefit of it, right? From just a product. More than that, the transformation of your people is what we were really big on. Yeah. But sometimes people can't see that, and I'm probably going to be an advocate for a while that when you think about sales, that if you talk to an organization, they be like, you got to have a sales team, right? You got to have marketing, right? When they say HR, they're thinking from the standpoint of hiring, firing, making sure people get their checks, right? A few other things, like make sure the legal things. But then the training and development oftentimes get pushed back. It's one of the first things that come off the table or the last thing to get brought to the table. And I'm saying, if you don't understand that is a hard skill for your organization, for your people, then what you're doing is you're missing this money that's sliding out. Because every time someone leaves or every time someone causes an issue, right, you are paying for that and don't know that some of that training could have helped out. And so when I said, hey, we can take this thing virtually, well, at that point, people have been tiptoeing around, can we do things virtually? Is there a way that we can do this, not in the same space, remotely? And 2020 just pushed everybody there.
Right, you had to do it. Yeah.
No more tiptoeing. We pushed everybody. And so when we did that, I was like, you know what? We're gonna build a program. So for 6 months, I just kind of got in the hood, man. Like I said, built a studio, created videos, and so the first program that we made was called Momentum Accelerated Leadership Program.
So is Momentum University an online module program? It's like that people can subscribe to?
They can, usually, we do it right now. We're working through that on how they do the subscription and things like that. But it's funny that you say that because we just did release a new Flex membership program that we're offering. Okay. And I'll get into that in just a second. But, with Momentum Accelerated Leadership Program, it's a 6-month program that pretty much can be done all on your phone. Okay. Literally all on your phone.
So it's like an online course or whatever.
Yeah. But there's some interaction, so there's some live portions to it. Okay. Because adult learning says that adults learn differently, right, than kids, right? Ideally, though, we probably should be a little bit more in kids in nature, but that's a whole other conversation. But they learn differently. They want to be able to solve their own problems. They understand things by putting their hands on it, working through it. So what we do is we use the psychology and the statistics and data of how people learn and how people keep new things that they learn. And we build that into the program. So you'll have a live session that happens once a month, and everybody's on there. They get new content, right? And the cone of learning will say, okay, you know, depending on how engaged you are, it depends on how much you're going to learn.
Mm-hmm.
But then the law of forgetting, or the curve of forgetting, will say, if you don't use this within 24 to 48 hours, you're only going to remember about 30, possibly 40%. And every day after that, you start reducing down. And within 7 days, you only remember about 20%.
Yeah.
So we backed into that and said, how can we make sure we keep on pushing things, right? Everybody's on their phone anyway.
Yeah.
They're scrolling anyway. Just put something for them to scroll on that'll help them. And that's what we did. So 6 months, creating videos, creating content, creating brand, all of this, right? Puts this thing together and then push it out, man. First cohort had 5 people. No, 7 people. 7 people.
So you just promoted it.
I was like, hey,
seven people signed up.
Yeah, 7 folks signed up. I was like, I really want you to be, this is going to be awesome. You really got to do this, right?
Yeah.
Of those 7 people, 4 of them paid.
We had some free family members.
Right. And it was such a learning thing. But I don't want to get overly biblical, but I'll use it from a standpoint. There is a statement in a biblical context that says, he gives bread to the eater and seed to the sower.
Mm-hmm.
And that helped me during that period of time. Notice that statement. If you are the eater, that means you've been eating.
Mm-hmm.
If you are sower, you have been sowing, meaning that you're already doing the thing. So now I can provide it for you.
Now I can bless you.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, I needed to be doing the thing so that I can get more.
Yeah.
Clearly, that worked.
Yeah. Faith without works, though.
Right.
You got to move.
Totally dead, right?
Yeah.
So those 7 folks, I'm over here trying to work through it. Like, my mentor is going like, man, this is crazy. Why am I doing this? Blah, blah, blah. A company had a guy, connections. He's like, hey, I just moved to a new company. I want to move up in the organization, blah, blah, blah. He was like, do you know of anybody? I was like, I'm that person that you want. And we ended up inking a deal, and it was the initial deal that was beyond the 7 folks that really put momentum in that orbit, right? And
now, is that the leadership 6-month course? Is that the only course you have on momentum right now? So how many courses do you have?
So I tell people I have 3 major products. I have Momentum Accelerated Leadership Program. I have a Flex program, and then I got a group coaching.
Okay.
And
now, what's the Flex program?
The Flex program will allow an organization to put between 25 people to 300 people within a year through a program. It's going to depend on, that's why it's called Flex, how frequent you want these people learning on these platforms.
Gotcha.
Right? And so what happens is, let's say you got 25, I say 25, that's the max. You got 25 folks you want to go through this. They can go through 3 months worth of content, which would be, give or take about 3 pieces of major content that they would work through, competencies. You can do 6 months. You can do every month just one thing. Or you can say, hey, I'm going to do a full year with this group of people, right? Okay. If a person just shows, say, I'm going to do 25 people and I'm going to change them each time, that's where you can get 300 people through it. So,
got you.
Let's say I have people reach out and say, hey, man, we don't have no trust in our organization. Folks don't trust each other. They don't know their back, right? Can you help me change the culture? I'm like, how many folks you got? Oh, man, we got this, man. Like, if you want to get 300 people through this, we can just agree to do building trust every month. With all your people, you get 300 people.
They just take 300 people through it. How do you, because one thing I realize about training organizations, especially if you got they have to take that action to get online virtually and go through a module or course. How has it been like tracking the participation? You know what I mean? Because you had an organization like, oh my gosh, I got to do this module. I don't feel like logging on. A lot of people work virtually. Like, how do you monitor or audit that?
Yeah, I started smiling because my vendor partner and I, that's exactly what we've done, man.
Okay.
And so more than just the transformation of the people, they love seeing the data that's coming back,
good.
Right? So we create this platform. You may have heard Alice. You've heard, you're in that space, right? So it's kind of like the AI, right? The artificial speaking entity for us that's actually grabbing data for us. So it'll come on, Bill lines, logs on, logs in, and it'll like, how you doing today, man? How is work?
Okay.
Right? So it's tracking, first of all, when you logged in. How long you in there? Did you say
It's
you
Big
like,
Brother.
Yeah,
Big Brother.
it's tracking all that stuff, right? And so for us, what we doing is like, okay, cool. This is great. Now when I go to have a conversation, I'm becoming even more valuable to the organization because now I'm saying, hey, you had your people coming in, they were learning about trust, but they're really, really engaged from this time to this time. They don't really like this about their job. They would really love to do this type of stuff, and they are semi-engaged in the program.
Yeah.
Right. So I can show them all this information just from the data.
And a lot of times, like the third party, like you as the third party, can get more quality information or true data versus them trying to do it themselves, because they're going to, the employees or the staff, they're always going to try to, say what's politically correct or, culturally
they try to keep
correct.
their job.
Yeah, exactly.
This is exactly what they do.
So man, listen, tell me this then. If an organization has issues, whether it's with trust or, the culture's not where it should be, what are some of the first things that they can do, that the leadership can do to address that? I mean, I know obviously bring an organization like you in, like Momentum University, but what are some things that they can do after first recognizing, oh, this culture ain't where it needs to be?
Yeah. First of all, I think that you really gotta remove the ego, right?
Okay.
You gotta remove the ego and really start having a conversation with all levels of the organization. And I don't know if that's small group meetings, if that's town halls. What does that look like, right? Also bringing in an outside entity to do like these surveys, right? So you've probably heard of things called climate surveys. Working with an organization now that's looking to do some climate surveys so they can get this information back. And usually what I say is, if you're gonna do your own assessment, that's fine. But it's not that I don't trust you. They don't trust you, right? So I want to validate or let you know, hey, this is not right. This is not what I'm getting from the people that they're doing, right? That they're what they're talking about according to your assessment, right? At that point, what you start to do is raise those problems up, right? And then don't run from it. Don't get defensive about it. Then start to build a plan and say, okay, this is what we need to do, right?
Does it have something to do too? I would assume like leadership addresses the issues, or they let the organization know, okay, here's some issues we got, instead of like turning a blind eye or acting like nothing's wrong, like saying, hey, here's our issues and we're going to start working on them. There's just the transparency.
That's exactly what it is, man. It's transparency, and, people tend to apply. Like, it's crazy. I was talking to someone just yesterday where the person was the leader of the organization from the learning and development was frustrated because someone wasn't mounting up or being who they're supposed to be in their eyes. But this person had come over from maybe more of the boots on the ground side, and they were trying to move into the corporate office. Right? So when you're in the field, you're doing things from the field perspective. If you get moved into the corporate office, then you need to be taught on these types of things, right? You may have the understanding of how the products work, but do you understand why we're doing what we're doing? What's the perspectives? What's the outlook? Why are we doing this? Like all of these things, and most people don't know that, and vice versa, right? If you was in the corporate office and you've now been put out there in the field to do some leadership, you don't understand what you don't understand, and so being able to be open to understand what the other side of the business is doing, what they're saying. They're not lying to you. If folks don't wake up and say, I want to just do a bad job. They don't, right? And they may not consciously say, I want to be great, right? And do the things that they need to be great, but they don't come in and say, I want to do a bad job. Most people, right? So we have to find a way to make sure it's easy for them to do it. The brain says, hey, look, we're going to take the easiest way. And so sometimes the easiest way is to complain and say, man, this you could have did this, but you didn't do it. And then the leadership saying, well, you didn't tell me. Right? And so we got this gulch, this rift right in the middle, right? And so what I do is I try to build this bridge right there and say, look, guys, let's come together. This is what they're trying to say, and this is what they're trying to say, and these are the competencies that's going to help you guys do that. So you may need to communicate better. You may need to have some crucial conversations. You may need to have some of these DISC type of assessments to understand how you work versus what they work, right? Because you start to communicate differently. And, I say that in my book, that you can say the same thing 4 or 5 different ways, and it can mean 4 or 5 different things.
Yeah.
So, I really work on what's the strategy to make sure that the place that you are working, you want to work.
What do you notice the best companies or organizations are doing to empower their people or create a great culture?
They're letting them be a part of the solution, man.
Okay.
And that's a huge thing, man.
Yeah.
Like, if you're gonna make
they
a change,
feel like they're making a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, if you're gonna make a change and you're being given that change, saying this is what we're going to do, you're going to respond very different than saying, hey, I was a part of that meeting, or I was a part of that planning process, and this is what we're going to do. Right? We see this all the time with municipalities and cities where, let's just use Nashville, for example. Big conversation about stadium, right? Yeah. Some folks feel like, hey, I wasn't a part of this. They're not looking out for me. Versus if you were at that table, you would feel very different about the stadium, right? And so that happens in the workplace all the time. And so anytime you're doing a change initiative, or you're changing something, or you're going forward with your mission, the idea is to really start to give the whys, create those whys in there, why that person is significant in that process, what they do, why that matters, and if they really want to be a part of pushing that forward, this is what we need. Can you step up to the table and do that? Yeah. Right? So what you want to do is kill as many of the excuses as possible. Yeah. There's just some people they're going to complain. Right. But the average person, they just really want to be a part of it. And so companies are allowing them to be a part of that change.
No, that's good. And there's an art too, I think, to companies allowing people to be a part of the change or accomplish, an objective within that company.
Yeah.
So man, before we wrap it up, you talked about your book. Yeah. So I want you to tell folks, the name of your book and what that's about, and then what you got going on or what's around the corner for you.
Yeah. So the book is a little older, but I still stand very close to it. It's called Beneath the Surface of Customer Service. Okay. And it's kind of like a content workbook. So it has this content, but then it says, I really want you to work through it. That's the facilitator coming out of me. Like, I just don't want you to read, because I don't know if you're going to be inking or not. I don't know if you're going to be writing notes.
Highlighting.
Right. So I put it there. Like, look, you can write right here in these lines, right here. Yeah. But I really focus on customer service, and this is the reason why it's called Beneath the Surface of Customer Service, because a lot of entities or organizations look external for customer service, right? They say, hey, we're making sure our customer is great. But they don't know they have an internal customer, right? Your internal customer is like hating you, and you want
your employee, your staff. Yeah.
You got this whole thing. It's like this L situation, right? So we're really focusing on this side, but this up here, just up and down, just people don't like each other. Wow. So, if you ever had a sibling, they fight in the house, and then they try to come out and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You're like, what's wrong with it? Why his clothes look like that? He look all rugged and hair all messed up. That is the internal customer service now being shown to the external. So when you have that person that takes your order, be like, how can I help you? Right? Yeah. And they looking all frustrated, like, did you want to be here today? Yeah. Something didn't happen on the internal side to make them excited, versus when we sit there looking at Chick-fil-A. I've gone through Chick-fil-A, and the line is all the way around the world, and they still get you through in the same amount of time as you would if you went to another one.
Granted, they do have about 27 people.
They do. But, that's the whole process, right? It's all a part of it. And they work that thing out, right? And so I'm saying, we really talk about that, try to figure out who you are in the organization. We built an assessment around that, like, what's that culture look like? Who are you in that culture? So that's all taken in that. And I do some training around that when we talk about customer service as well, because customer service starts on the phone. Yeah. It starts, it actually starts, and this is my architecture background coming in, when a person drives up to your location. Right. Your stuff looking all ragged, and they're like, I hope it's in a historic district and it's really been done on the inside, because outside it's got me scared, right? Yeah. So, those type of things are in there. Moving to what am I doing now? Man, I'm super excited. Like I said, we're really pushing this tech side of things. Yeah. I'm doing a lot of traveling right now, working with a lot of great clients. And what's cool about this is that we're trying to provide answers to both sides of this coin, right? The organization wants their people to do well, right? And I get it, and I love that, and I want the organization to have the best players. But at the same time, I want the best players to be good for themselves, right? To be able to understand their value. So what we're doing is we're trying to provide this way of saying, here's some courses where people can get online and just really work for themselves, like help themselves get better, right? Move up in their career, right? Versus the organization who's going to call me out and say, hey, we got a problem with this. I want to focus on this, right? Where a person can say, hey, I want to go to the next level. I know I'm going to need these type of competencies to get there. I want to take these courses, right? And then we work with them. So, when I said we got 3 products, the other one was group coaching. The idea is to get a bunch of folks in that feel a lot like you, don't have their manager, possibly don't even have their peers in the room or on the platform, and then we all talk about it. Like, man, how do I get better at this? How are you getting better? What's it look like on the West Coast versus the East Coast? Like, what is it? And you can pull all this information in, and I facilitate and guide that, or somebody on my team facilitates and guide that conversation, and then we put some things out there for them to work on. Right. And so we really do work from stretching. Right? We stretch. We're not just saying some stuff that, hey, good job. I'm saying, hey, by Wednesday, I want to see if you've done these things we talked about. And then if you didn't, I challenge them to fail. I'm like, hey, let's fail it. Let's fail this week. Right? I want you to go out there. Don't go after the rabbit. Go after the lion. Right? Try to tame that beast. And if you fail, then you won, because that's the challenge. But if you actually tame that, you won too. So it's a win-win situation.
Man, people are so afraid to fail, man. I'm like, yo, go after that big, hairy, audacious goal, stretch, and if you don't get it, if you don't reach that objective, I mean, you still had to stretch. You still had to become more. Talk about becoming, in order to at least get halfway there or whatever. So that's really key, man. So how can people get in touch with you if they want to engage you for their company or individually?
Yeah, man. I tell people all the time that LinkedIn, that's my spot, man. I'm on LinkedIn like people on Instagram, right? I'm on Instagram, but I'm on LinkedIn like people on Instagram. Like I'm posting all the time. I'm showing where I am.
It's under Adrian Davis on LinkedIn.
Adrian Davis. And then on Instagram, you can find me under productivity_coach.
Productivity_coach on IG. And but you living on LinkedIn.
Like, I'm living there, man. That's my space. So you really want to get a hold of me, connect with me, that's what you want to do, because that's where I do a lot of stuff. So you see everything from personal to corporate type of interactions.
LinkedIn is a great tool, man, especially for what you're doing. Doing it in that corporate space and leadership and development. Hey, man, appreciate you coming in, brother. You guys reach out to Adrian Davis, Momentum University on LinkedIn or IG productivity_coach. Hey, we appreciate you guys for tuning in as always. If you have not subscribed to the podcast or the YouTube channel, please do that. The handle is Tech Don't Sleep. And we appreciate our sponsors too. This quarter, we got TPX as our major sponsor, and of course, Comcast Business. As always, we appreciate you guys for helping sponsor the podcast and our events. And we got a Lunch and Learn coming up with Thrive. So appreciate Thrive for stepping in and sponsoring that as well. Hey, y'all, we'll see y'all next time. Remember, don't sleep, because tech don't sleep.
Won't stop to lie, can't stop to lie. Won't stop to lie, can't stop to lie.